Returns. All right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for making it to the last session of the first day. Well done. Hopefully I'll run to time and won't keep you too longer, but have so much that I want to share with you all. So first of all, kia ora koutou, I'm Nadia Thorne. I am CEO of Black Salt Games and brand new Disc 2 games. And I'm also the producer of our games, including Black Salt's debut title that released last year called Dredge. The obligatory speaker CV, so I've been working in games for almost 20 years now, but in game development for 13. Prior to starting Black Salt Games, I was at Cerebral Fix, and that was just great to give me exposure and experience on a whole lot of different kind of game development projects and approaches. And all of that has fed into how we decided to do things with Black Salt. Today, very broad talk, which is basically trying to condense and summarize the approaches to developing indie games for market success. I first did this talk back in 2021 when it was just a theory, and we were actually in the phase of pitching to publishers at that time, and because, we wanted to reach as wide an audience as possible. We did reach quite a wide audience and achieved everything that this plan mapped out. So hopefully there'll be something in it for you as well. But to be clear, what context we're looking in, this approach is looking to min-max indie game development, aiming to make enough of a return to at least cover the next development project. This approach, it isn't so much aimed at building a single game, so much as building a studio. And it's very much focused on the premium game model rather than free-to-play or subscription models. So it won't be the approach that everyone wants to take, but if your aim is to make a positive return from your first game that will then fund your studio through their next project, then hopefully there's something in here for you. So for successful release of a title, our studios plan in three main areas: the product design, the product development, and the product marketing. Our thinking is that not doing a good enough job in any of these, in one of these areas, will mean that the game is unlikely to turn a profit. You can have a great game design and great marketing of a game, but if you don't execute it well, then players are going to be refunding that. You can have a really engaging concept and develop it perfectly, but if you don't tell players about it, they'll never find it. So there are always exceptions to the rule. I just don't like betting on it. Signing with a publisher to handle the majority of the marketing is an excellent idea, but you still have to generate that initial interest in your game. And the more that you market your project, the more that publishers will seek you out. But we'll go into that a bit more later. So, we're going to be mainly talking about Steam today because that's just where you can get most of the data. So, we're going to start with some really hard facts. Only 1 in 5 indie games on Steam will make more than $50,000 in their entire lifetime. Only the top 9% cross $200,000. That means that 91% of games on Steam make less than $200,000 in their lifetime. The top 1% will make over $7 million. Now, everyone has different costs and with the project, and making multiple games that maybe, do target just to earn $50,000 and building up a wide portfolio of those kinds of games is a totally legitimate strategy. For our titles, though, we're aiming for that 90th percentile, so that green slice of the pie, and that's why we approach things the way that we do. There's 30 games being released on Steam on any given day. There's already more than 70,000 games released on Steam. And it's increasingly, so like each year, more and more games are released. Last year, I think 14,000 games got released. We've already had 14,000 games released on Steam just this year. So, yeah, basically, consoles as well are less saturated, but they also have less opportunity to be able to funnel your users with your own marketing efforts. So even though Steam is saturated, it's still obviously a great market if you can crack it. Second fact, your year one Steam sales will likely fall into that 12 to 20 times your day one sales. So good or bad, you're probably going to have a sense of how well your game is doing pretty early on in your Steam release. Let's explore this equation a little bit more. So there are a few more nuances than just this, obviously. So things like your reviews and the price point that you set your game at will impact both your sales and how much you're going to be promoted by Steam's algorithms. Lower prices and lower reviewed games get promoted less. Steam promotion does count for a lot of those top percentages, those 1%ers as well. Using this as a model also doesn't take into account any sales from any other platforms, but if you're going to release on Steam, it's definitely something you should be aware of. With Dredge coming up 2 years post-release, our launch day is still 2.5 times our next highest day in terms of units sold. Our launch day is about 60 times what we're selling on an average day, just to put that launch day into context of how big and for how long it will remain your biggest day. So let's get into it though. How did we do it? How did we make a demo that would lead to a publishing deal, that would lead to our debut game hitting not just that 9% that I wanted, but that top 1% of Steam games? It's a long story, so let's get into it. So just pushing the data and numbers aside a bit, I will get back into it, it is me. But we're all in this industry to provide experiences of like that delight others, right? We want to tell stories or elicit new ways of seeing the world and inspire those emotional connections. Crunching the numbers, attacking the niche has limited applications. It's the creativity, a new game that is both, sort of unique but familiar, or set apart in some way from games that have come before it. That's what we as developers want to make, and that's what gamers want to play. I think most of us will probably be united in having a story or a world or an experience that we want to share. A game idea that's been turning around in our heads for months, if not years. We're specifically not making that as our first title, okay? Those games are for when we're a bit further on, we're a AAA studio, and we have the resources to properly realize it and do it justice. But even though we're not making our piece de resistance, there are still so many awesome game ideas out there and so many games that would be fun to work on. And when we share those game ideas with each other in our team, they evolve into something even more exciting. So the first stage is brainstorming. Any and all story ideas and mechanics are on the table. We kick off by discussing what kind of games we enjoy playing, the types of games that we would want to make, and most importantly, the games that we want nothing to do with. People ask me why I started the second studio, Disc 2 Games, rather than just bringing another team under Black Salt. And it's because each studio is fundamentally interested in making very different types of experiences. And we're always, I feel at least, going to make a better game if we're engaged with it ourselves. So we go through lists, throw out anything that we're not fans of, and that's, genres of games, monetization strategies, the platforms that we like. We ask, how does everyone feel about free-to-play in the team? How does everyone feel about VR? Do you like horror games? That sort of thing. And what we're left with, which is still quite wide and huge, guides us to the types of games ideas that we'll then think up in the next phase. Interestingly, though, it may turn out that your game may still absolutely appeal to those genres that you threw out. Black Salt Games randomly never set out to make a horror game with Dredge. Actually, none of us like horror games. What we did try to make was an atmospheric game that used elements of the unknown to elements of the unknown and not knowing if you were safe to kind of sell the setting of the game. Now, no die-hard horror fan would say that Dredge is a horror game either, but it has appealed to many of those who enjoy horror games as well. Now, the next step is a go wide, not deep exercise. So we're aiming for dozens of game ideas if possible here, even if you're a one-man band. The minimum target is 20 of these one-pagers or half-pages. They're not game design documents, as you can see. They're ideally less, sort of one page or even less than that, and they're just meant to outline the core idea. The plan is to throw away most of these that we come up with, so we don't want to spend too much time on them. Then comes the sifting phase. For each game that we're discussing at a really high level, what big time chunks or resource components are needed to make it work? Like, if it's a multiplayer game, can we manage the QA required to support the playtests throughout development? Can we be confident that there will be a big enough player base to sustain it at release? Is there a difficult AI component that we don't really have the experience to program right now? Has someone already made that game and done it better than what we would be able to achieve? Can we do it, but it would take much longer than what we want to spend on a game? So some of these ideas will combine and evolve during the discussions that you have with your team, and some will fall really flat as well, but it doesn't matter because you've got so many ideas to choose from, and there will absolutely be a bunch that all of you as a team kind of agree on. The ones that are just out of scope, the big MMO FPS ones we throw out for now. Maybe down the line we'd come back and revisit it, but for now, really we're talking about giving ourselves the best shot at making game 2. So game 1 needs to release well, and allows us to move on to game 2. And then once you've thrown out the ones that aren't suitable, you've got your prototype shortlist. At Black Salt, before Dredge, we had just come out of a big prototyping phase from our previous studio because of COVID. And we ended up making 3 prototypes that included Dredge. My second studio, Disc 2, we just made 5 prototypes before going through the review stage and picking one. So, prototypes. What is the absolute minimum that you need to put together to test if a game loop is fun? Although, for us, I guess, the goal wasn't to make 5 really fun prototypes. We were actually hoping that the prototypes will prove that the game isn't fun, or is only fun for 10 minutes and then gets really old after that. We don't really want to spend more than 200 hours working on each prototype, and then about 10 hours playtesting it. That could sound like a lot, 200 hours, but that's really only a fraction of what you will spend on your whole game development. So to find out after 200 hours that your game idea isn't viable is actually quite awesome. Now, other people might only have, say, 10 hours a week available to work on a project rather than what we did, which was like 40 hours a week. So they might try and reduce the size of the games they're intending to prototype and potentially to eventually make. My thoughts is basically if it's going to take 3 months to complete the prototype, then it's going to take even longer than you think to make the real game as well. So now I appreciate that even for experienced developers that estimation is a bit of a dark art, but it is important that the prototyping time doesn't eat too much into the game development time. So you're wanting enough that you don't waste a bunch of time pursuing a game that isn't viable for one of the many possible reasons, but not so much time that you never end up greenlighting a project because you're just spending all of your time prototyping them. So setting up review points in your prototype development, sort of every kind of 16 hours or so, to be like, okay, are we quarter of the way through? Are we halfway through? Just to make sure that that prototype isn't spiraling out of control. And we're also not going to be winning any awards with our prototypes unless it's most efficient. So the prototype code is, it should be just enough to get by. It's absolutely okay to hack things together and do things in completely janky ways. Or if you're missing things like tooltips or tutorials, that doesn't matter because you can tell your playtesters kind of what's missing, and you will throw out your code before you wouldn't build on your prototype code. So it's fine. Have fun with it. Do whatever. So playtesting, which is a really key part of our development process all the way through. We start early, right at the prototype phase, and the reason is sometimes our brilliant ideas don't translate into brilliantly fun games. The only way we're going to know if other people like it is if we get other people to play it and tell us honestly. Playtesting can also give us future ideas to incorporate into the game, and importantly, if we've picked the right playtesters, they'll tell us if it's similar to any other games that we might have missed for the next phase that I'm going to talk about. There are so many great talks on how to conduct good playtests, so I'm not going to dive into this here, but we test with a minimum of 5 people, broadly from the demographic that are interested in that genre of games. And yeah, when playtesting, we just ask them to think out loud. We've got surveys at the end. And one question that we do like to ask is, if we had to remove something from the prototype, what should it be? Because that way we're learning if we're overscoping the prototypes as well. If they can't come up with anything that should be removed, you did good. And then once we've tested all of our prototypes with people outside of the development team, we've got a bunch of data about the games, and we're going to use that along with the market analysis to determine whether any of these prototypes are worth greenlighting and if they will become our commercial game dev project, or if we start the whole process all over again. So while we're crafting the prototype of the game, we're also looking at its potential market. Proper market analysis in the game industry is tough. You're basically looking to gather as much information as you can with not much available and make an informed evaluation as possible with it. The way we do market research is jump on Steam and look at games with similar tags and keywords to what our games would use. So for Dredge, for example, I was looking at other games with day and night cycles, Lovecraftian games, or games that our playtesters had mentioned they were reminded of when they were playing our prototype. We came up with a lot of games that are superficially similar to the ones that we're prototyping. That's okay. From a consumer perspective, these are still the games that are likely going to be competing for your audience's attention, or that players might compare with yours. Now, if you do manage to find a game that is exactly like yours, do learn everything you can about it, unless it's better than what you could hope to do, and then maybe sort of shelve your version for right now. But slowly we build up a picture of that game's space on a particular platform. We get a feel for how much content players of those games expect, the level of polish, and the hours of gameplay that they're satisfied with for the price that they're charged. So you can start to figure out how your game would fit into that market if you were to develop and release it. So the things we do, you search for postmortems on GDC, YouTube, Game Developer, and I look at sort of how many game developers were on the team, how long it took them to make. Sometimes the teams just straight up tell you how much it costs, and that's awesome. Dredge cost $860,000 for anyone interested in their own budgeting. You can estimate how much the product made. So far, Dredge fits within this cozily. So we're sitting at about a 40 times multiplier. You look at the reviews of the product. You try and identify the common themes in the review. So what did that game do well? What did players not like about the game? You try and identify what's different about your game to this game. And then especially in the things that players didn't enjoy about others' game, there's some potential gold in there, because it will tell you what players of the genre are wanting, and potentially you can provide it for them. You're looking at when it was released, how much did it cost on release. You can use SteamDB to get the price of the game at launch, and you can use how long to complete to see how many hours of content is in the game, and then you can work out that hours per dollar equation for all of the games you're looking at, to start to build a sense of what players in that genre expect. You'll find things like RPGs, you can charge a bit more for a bit less. Strategy games, for example, need a bit more. You need a bit more content, and you need to charge a bit less for it. So, depending on the game and how many comparisons there are, it can take a while to go through. This is my market research sheet from when we were prototyping Dredge, and it brings me to make a note about popular genres versus niche games. So what do we do when we find a lot of our type of game already available, and what if we find there's nothing like what we're making? The closest game we could really find to something like Dredge was a game called Sunless Sea by Failbetter. But yeah, most cases we were stretching day and night cycle, games with water. I think doing this exercise across all of your games does give you a good sense as to whether you're ready to elbow your way into a saturated market with your offering, and whether you'll stand out amongst that, or conversely, you'll be working out how to convince players that they'll like your game if they enjoyed X, Y, Z. Without frames of reference, players aren't easily able to gauge if your game is right for them. And with thousands of other games to choose from, it's really easy to pass over a game if you're not sure that you're going to enjoy it. So basically, saturated market or niche, either can work as long as you have a really clear understanding of how you're going to lead players to trust you that they're going to enjoy your game as well. Once you're through the next steps, you'll also be able to mark how your game might compare to these others for your players. So with Dredge, we knew we'd be entering in with a shorter amount of content than what our player audience sort of really preferred. But there was a big audience that we would be able to market to. Finally, there's also the consideration of the instability of your game. And that's basically, are you going to be able to post interesting screenshots and videos, potentially multiple times a week, with enough variation that players are going to be able to feel at a glance, scrolling through your pages, that there's a lot of interesting things going on with your game. Regular posting on various social media channels can only have good outcomes for your game, whether that's early feedback that helps you tailor it to the market, or interest of publishers and games media. So especially if you don't have a marketing budget, as we didn't when we were doing Dredge, or first doing Dredge. So we want to factor in marketability of our title in that decision making, especially when there's ability to leverage the free platforms like social. Our social posting also directly led to a publishing deal as well. Although we didn't rely on the social channels to reach publishers, that was how we managed to get on this publisher's radar. So through our market research, we know how much content and the depth of content that players of those markets are after. And now that we've also gone through the prototyping process, we have a grasp on what the development of a game is going to look like. Now we need to dig a bit deeper and get that production scope to help us work out whether it's going to be worth it at all. And we're going to do all of the games at the same time to see how they're going to stack up against each other. So, multiplayer, AI, level design, 3D characters, animation. We're not trying to be meticulous and try and capture everything. In fact, it will be closer to the true scope when we double these estimations, but we want to give ourselves a sense of the magnitude of each of these games compared to the others. And once we've mapped out most of the features and resourcing needs that are going to, that each game's going to need, we use t-shirt sizing at this stage for things. So small might take a day, medium a week, large a couple of weeks, and so on. From this, we will get a really rough idea of the size of each game and how they might compare against each other in terms of complexity. So, two worlds, we're aiming to get a publisher on board to maximize our potential reach, but we're also planning for the situation where we will not get a publisher signed and what that will mean for our project. So at this stage, we're trying to make a rough calculation of how many units we would need to sell to create a return on investment target. So for this, we do need to think a little bit about the price points we might charge for the potential game. We will refine this budget more if we end up greenlighting the game. But at this point, we just use our market research on pricing and hours of content to gauge where it might sit price-wise. So for that, you need to plug in the length of time needed, the amount of resources needed, the cost of those resources, all of your development licenses, dev kits, marketing, localization, those things, and then your platform fees as well. All that together is going to equal your development budget. And then you're going to take that development budget and times it by the magic number of 1.65, which the 1.65 is basically here to take into account the platform royalties, refunds, and once again, we're aiming for that 200,000 kind of net revenue on Steam. So development budget times 1.65 divided by the price, and you have the number of units you would need to sell to create a positive return on your game project. So if we look at Dredge's initial 1-year self-publishing plan, 1 year, we have 3 people, and here I've just plugged in our average salary, added the costs of the Unity and Adobe licenses, plugins, rent, and then we added Steam's $165 app fee on top. And we come out with a development budget of $265,000. Wouldn't that be nice? Now, Dredge didn't only take a year and 3 people to make. We had 2 years and 4 people. And yeah, we also did have a bit of a buffer funding when we started Black Salt. So at the point that we signed Dredge to publish a Team 17, we did make the decision to go deeper into the game and flesh it out more than this original plan would have allowed. So yeah, it did turn into 2 years and 3.5 people, which also doubled the units that we had to sell. But that's jumping ahead at this point, because at this stage we're still looking at like 3 to 5 prototypes, each with different development budgets and genre expectations from players. So they're all going to have different budgets and units to sell. But if you do go into development with any one of these projects, you'll be able to use these figures in a different model that I'll show you a bit later on to have a good indication even before you release as to whether you are going to hit your units to sell target. And we're pretty much going to know for sure within that first day of release whether you're going to hit it. So take everything I've been babbling about for the last 40 odd minutes, and these are all the angles that's really bad formatting. These are all the angles that you need to use to decide if you should spend the next 1 to 2 or 3 more years of your life on this game. Although not without first including that particular point in your discussions. Would you enjoy working on that game for 1 or 4 years? What will your role in that project be over the course of those years? Will it allow the professional growth that you're after across that time, like better part of half a decade? Or will there be long stretches where you'll be working in areas that you don't enjoy? is that okay? Can you deal with that? So yeah, when one of our game projects is shining above the others in these sort of areas, then that's great. That means that you've got something to greenlight. If everything is mediocre, then start the process again because you don't have a winner on your hands. Luckily, we did have one of our prototypes that kind of shone far and wide above the rest and did well in all of these areas. So Dredge was picked to go forward because got a green tick everywhere here. Prototyping meant that we had already formulated ideas on how we could craft the whole world in a short amount of time with only 2 game developers. It scored really highly amongst playtesters who all enjoyed the inventory fish puzzling and were drawn into the story and the world. And we could see that we wouldn't be competing against AAAs in this genre. So we could meet or even surpass players' expectations, even with our small team. And we knew that there would be a variety of content that we could share about it on social channels to keep things new and fresh all through to release. So we were also excited about it ourselves as a team. The setting, the world building, and the RPG elements, oh, cool, we're also excited about it. I think we're united in looking forward to it. I'm going to smash through this because I want to get to the end. Basically, next step, once you've greenlit, make a roadmap. Plug in your release date. Work backwards from there. Your important dates, Steam Next Fest, so important. We got, a quarter of our pre-launch wish list just from the Steam Next Fest. And obviously showcases are important to plug in. The first kind of development milestone for us is our publisher demo. And so all of that initial first development is building towards that publisher demo. I'm gonna smash through though. Agile. That could be controversial. It's awesome, I promise, if you do it right. And I appreciate that meetings feel really that they take up too much time and stuff. But been doing it for years, and we definitely wouldn't change it. Building an audience, this is what I want to get to. This is more important. We already know that first day sale on Steam is critical, and the way that you get Steam to help you boost on that first day is your follow account. The current thinking is, depending on what else is launching at the time, you need 10,000 to 50,000 wish lists, which roughly translates into 1,000 to 5,000 followers, and that's going to get you featured on your launch. Features will have an incredible impact on your bottom line, especially if you're self-publishing. Now, you can run out and buy a whole bunch of wish lists if you want. That's definitely a strategy before you launch, but that's going to make this next part really tough. About 1/6 of your wish lists in your first year will convert into sales, but you'll also gain new wish lists too over the year, usually when your game is discounted. Dredge gained 4 to 5 times its pre-launch wish lists in its first year. So you take the number of units that you already worked out that you need to sell, times that by 2.5, and you have roughly the number of wish lists that you're targeting to hopefully safely get you the sales that you need in that first year. Now, because we're looking to earn $200,000, we're aiming for at least 50,000 wish lists pre-launch if your game is priced at like $18 on average. Sorry, 23,000, 23,000 wish lists. A good indie game will average 20 wish lists a day. So unless you're planning on spending 5 years in pre-launch, you're going to need to bring further attention because wish lists are pretty critical. The earlier you get your Steam page out, the more you show off your game via conferences, awards, and in social media, traditional media, influencers, reviewers, the more wish lists that you will accumulate prior to your release, and that will give you a good chance of getting a boost at launch. Most critical, as I said, was Next Fest. And I'm just going to smash through what worked. So our production budget, we doubled the time, and we 2.5'd the original budget, and that also doubled the number of units to sell to get to a profit. Round up the 42,000. We need to sell 50,000 copies of Dredge to be a financial success, basically. But we don't just want to cover our costs, right? Well, it'd be good if, we want to build to be able to cover us for the next game. So let's double that. So we now have a target of 100,000 units to sell. Quite the jump from that original 23,000, but that's fine. Luckily, we had passed the wish list target for the 50,000 with Next Fest demo. So if this model was correct, we would need 250,000 wish lists to sell the 100,000 copies. Dredge released with 270,000 wish lists. It sold its first 100,000 units by the end of launch weekend. So this tick, we can say it worked for us. Now, if we sold roughly 70,000 units on that day one, that would mean, in theory, that year one would go on to sell between 840,000 units and 1.4 million units. But you could have already have worked that out by just looking at our reviews and timesing that by 50. But yes, we got through that as well. So we can say that this model also worked for us. That's it. Okay, cool. We have time for questions though. Yay! Hopefully you have questions and I didn't smash through that for no reason. Do we have any questions? Oh, I hope so. Yes. Yes, you, sorry.
First of all, huge congratulations.
Thank you. I did it all. The team were nothing really to do with it. Yeah.
I was just curious to know, you mentioned at the very beginning you had some funding to help power through the ideation.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, that came from our previous studio, who's also our majority shareholder, Cerebral Fix. So I was previously general manager there. Everyone else in Black Salt were senior people, and so we basically ring-fenced $1 million and to have our first shot. Initially, we wanted to split that into 2 shots because it was, we didn't think that one shot would be enough. By the time we got there was enough data to say, okay, Dredge could do well. We're like, okay, we're going to go all in on our 2 years in this one game. But that was through. So it doesn't help anyone else there. Sorry. Yes, no. If only there was the go hit up Ben. Yeah, he'll love it. He'll love to talk to you. Yes.
You mentioned all these formulas for figuring out how a game would be. That seems like it would be great for publishers and stuff. How do you convince or get everyone on the development team on board with those kinds of figures or targets?
How do you get the development team on board? In terms of agreeing with them?
Or especially for instance, with Dredge, you added another year to the deal times.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate getting everyone on the same page for what the scale and scope?
Yeah, I think, again, our agile process are fantastic. So we can see months or even a year in advance if things are kind of going off track, or if we're going to need to reduce scope or bring on more resources or increase time if we want to hit this vision. So yeah, it's a lot of discussions where we go, okay, do we want to compromise what we plan to do? And so I went to the team, I was like, right, cool, you need to choose between dropping an area or bringing on a new artist. And they're like, new artist, thanks. But that then we have to realize that it also eats into our buffer, our safety net. So yeah, I think just very good team communication. It being a small team does make that easy, but everyone is aware of exactly what we're setting out to do. Yeah, no, good communication, I think. Cool. Sorry, did someone? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do it. Yeah.
The results that you got exceeded your initial model that you had.
They did.
I'm just curious, for the next projects, do you adjust your model upwards, or do you stay?
Yeah, no, I think we'll be setting ourselves up. Like, we're I don't know if we're pessimists or realists, but yeah, I think it's just because we had a great result with Dredge, so many other variables could come into it that our next game might sell a tenth of what Dredge did, or even less, and then we'll come running back to Dredge because we missed the heady heights off it. But yeah, no, always our targets will be realistic with our budget. So it will all just be around, okay, what is, how much is it going to cost us to make? What would a positive return on investment be, and what's going to give us a bit more buffer for the end? So my models, I had, okay, what if we sell 10,000 units, bad times, okay, gosh, what if we were to sell 1 million? Like, I know that's batshit crazy, but what if? And so, yeah, we were prepared for multiple eventualities, and I think you do need to be realistic about, no one might buy your game. What do you do then? Yeah, not fun to think about. Yes, sorry, in the cap.
Which parts of Agile that you found work the best for your team, and maybe there were some that are considered traditionally good that didn't work?
Yeah, obviously, Agile, you got to pick and choose the things that work with you. We've worked in Agile for sort of over a decade now, so it's really natural to us. We use Scrum pretty much all the way, and yeah, pretty standard Scrum, actually. Our daily stand-ups, we've got backlog refinements and everything as well, all of the Scrum ceremonies. We also add in 2 hours a week in the height of development towards design, which Scrum doesn't currently kind of allow for game design. It's got backlog refinement, which we keep separate from game design. So yeah, we add to it, but otherwise we use pretty standard Scrum. Yeah, we really enjoy the regular review steps and reflection steps to go, okay, are we on track? Are we not on track? Is it all kind of going to shit? How do we fix it? Yeah. Yes.
With a team of 3.5 people, were there any roles that are traditional to like a game team that you found you could get away without, or how did you merge kind of the many responsibilities of game development into something that was sane to take on with 3 people?
Yeah, we got really lucky that our programmer turns out to be an amazing writer. Even he didn't know that. So there was sort of little bits of luck. But in saying that, because our programmer turned out to be such an amazing writer, our script ballooned from, we had planned probably maybe an initial kind of 13,000 words, and just very kind of, straightforward and stuff to it's now 50,000 words. So it became a lot more story-driven as we developed the product because he was so good at it. But yeah, production and QA, that's a marriage there. So I spent more time QAing Dredge than I did producing Dredge all the way through. Yeah, and we're lucky in that our artists are also proficient in Unity, so they're working in Unity as well. Alex, our lead artist on it, also built all the shaders and everything. So yeah, we did have a lucky team that could take on those tasks. But also, it wasn't that we had planned to do so. We just jumped in and tried it, and and people within the team could take on those skill sets. So yeah, that was lucky. Hey. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for us it's playtesting, and it's getting that feedback from actual users all the way through. If you're not engaging the people who you would expect to buy your game, then you can tell pretty early on that you have to really change direction. So yeah, playtesting becomes our big guiding post up until to be honest, all through to release, really. Tim. Yeah, I think obviously our whole team are in that we're ready to pounce on problems together. The communication within the team is stunning. We were just I was just looking at one thing that we were just doing yesterday. Alex posts a screen to be like, okay, I'm thinking something like this. 52 replies. There's only 4 of us. But that's the sort of kind of collaboration that's involved, and our processes allow us to do that because it gives us those regular times where we do get together, talk it all through, raise the problems that we have. So yeah, I think the agile process were absolutely critical, and the communication that those processes foster was critical. Sorry, can I have one more? Sorry. Yes.
Sorry, to what extent did you meet the velocity of
so this is maybe a little bit controversial because we've got such a small team. No one is working on so basically only Joel can do the programming, only Alex can do this. So basically each person had an individual velocity, and so each sprint I knew 30 points for this person, 20 points for this person, 8 points for this person. Those points mean nothing to no one else, and all they really mean is 2 weeks worth of work. But for me as the producer, that meant that I knew a year in advance if we were on track or not. Yeah. They're also very experienced, so estimation is a very difficult thing. But yeah, them as experienced developers helped a lot there. Cool, I think we're done. One last question. Yeah.
the different genres and marketing stuff.
Yes.
Was
That is such an awesome question because it's probably one of the areas that we were totally wrong on. And so, no, and I need to, and maybe the next talk there'll be an update for that. Yeah, so we thought with Dredge, because it's a linear story, we were like, oh, streaming will be a really, really bad for Dredge because the story will be ruined for them, right? And sure, what's the point of playing if the story has, if you've already seen the story play out? Oh my gosh, we're so wrong. So yeah, we released our demo on NextFest. Streamers picked it up. We kept the demo up, I think, for 2 months. So we hit the Screamfest as well. And then we took the demo down as planned. And we went from like 200 wish lists a day, tanked all the way back down to 1 or -1 a day. Those are the really depressing days. Because streamers were no longer picking it up and sharing it with their audiences and stuff. And so, yeah, we will do things very differently next time. Once we put up the demo, we will keep the demo up at least until launch because, yeah, the streamers turned out to be a massive funnel into our game. So, yeah, thank you for raising that because that's a really good point that we got wrong. But, yeah, we will try and do better next time. Cool, I think we're done. Thank you guys. First day of the conference.